All right, guys, welcome back to the Casual Combat MMA show for episode, who knows what, maybe like 14 or 15, right? But we are just coming off an extremely hot UFC 256. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we will get on to our UFC Fight Night next week, which is headlined by Stephen Thompson, the Wonderboy, and Jeff Neal. But before we get into that stuff, Cal, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Just finishing up my semester of schooling and got a couple finals this week, and then I got a nice long break, and I'm pumped up for that.
There we go. I do have to apologize. We obviously made our return to the YouTube world last week, but for some reason with our new software, the file was too big to upload to Buzzsprout, which is our podcast hosting service. So if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of that stuff, you probably didn't get to hear our episode last week. So I'm going to try to download it in a smaller size and less high quality definition, I guess you could say, but we're going to try to make that work this week. Not sure what the problem was there, but yeah, let's get right into this. At UFC 256, it started off one of the best early prelim fights I've ever seen between Chase Hooper and Barrett. What was your take? I know what my takeaway was, and I'm pretty sure I know what your takeaway was, but...
Well, so I started all of my parlays for the night with Chase Hooper winning. So this whole fight, I'm just screaming for Chase Hooper to get a hold of an ankle or something, or get a hold of the guy. And we saw Chase Hooper limping around in the second round. We saw him attempt an Imanari roll and didn't get anywhere. But then the submission at the buzzer down 2 rounds to none with all my parlays on the line, it made it a super fun fight to watch. I was very pumped up when he got submission. With that said, and I think you're going to say the same thing, was not overly impressed with Chase Hooper.
No, and the thing is, and this will be very reminiscent of what Dana White said in his post-fight interview, or the press interview at the end of the night. The fact that he is winning grants him kind of an excuse for right now, but it's going to be nearly impossible to keep pulling off wins like that, especially when, and forgive me, I can't remember what Barrett's first name was, but that guy was not elite competition, right? He was getting battered around by a guy who was not only an underdog to Chase himself, but to be honest, was controlling the fight, dictating where the fight went, and it did not look like Barrett obviously was comfortable on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. And when you are a grappling-specific fighter like Chase Hooper is, you have to be able to take it to the ground when you need to. And his wrestling takedowns were maybe the worst part of his whole game, right? I would say maybe even his striking was better than his ability to take the fight to the ground. Now, he ended up doing it with a very last-ditch effort Imanari roll sort of thing, but I mean, to count on that is insane, and he really needs to sharpen up.
Never get that again. That was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
People are going to be ready for him to roll out their ankles now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I actually felt bad for Peter there at the end. He was kind of tearing up, and I did feel for him for a second. I mean, he had 1-2 rounds, huge underdog, come in, win the first 2 rounds handling. All he had to do was survive and to get submitted, but it was a super fun fight to have a guy have some hair in the game and watch for sure.
Yeah, and I did feel for him too because, when I look at a guy like Peter Barrett, knowing that Dana's going to be cutting 60 guys here at the end of the year, losing in that fashion when you're 34 years old, I mean, I can't imagine that he's going to fight again in the UFC. But that being said, it was an entertaining fight, but I feel like we don't necessarily need to talk about this fight any much.
Nope.
We got a lot of more important fights to get to.
Yep. I think the next fight you wanted to highlight was Cub Swanson's beautiful performance.
Oh man, dude, that like we talked about earlier, this was such a feel-good win. Cub Swanson has been somebody who has been beloved in the UFC featherweight division for so long, and I would say that he is past his prime. I don't think he is an elite competitor anymore, but you would not know that by watching last night's fight. Now, I don't think that Daniel Pineda is a high-level opponent either, right? He's been cut by the UFC once, got a second chance, came back, knocked out Herbert Burns. So certainly not a guy to scoff at, but, man, anytime I can see Cub Swanson in the octagon with a guy that he can knock out, I'm going to eat it all up. Now, I have to admit, I did pick against Cub Swanson in my pre-fight card picks, but man, that doesn't mean that I wanted to see him lose. And it was awesome to see him get that win.
Yep, I was in the same boat. I was really impressed with him. I thought NATO is about as sure of a thing as you can have. And Cub Swanson really came out there and performed well. The next guy I'm excited to highlight is Kevin Holland. What a stud. The knockout from his back, his 5th win of the year, just looking like an absolute monster. His record's now 21-5. I mean, he is a stud.
Dude, so up until this fight, and I might be skipping over somebody that's for real. Okay, well, Joaquin Buckley is a for real guy that he has beaten this year, but up until now, I think he's entirely beaten prospects. You know, I don't think he had that big win to put on his belt to really prove that he is here and he is an elite competitor, man. But Jacare Souza, although probably on the downward end of his career, right? I think he's probably got to look into the future and see what's up for him. Jacare is just coming off a not too long ago split decision to Jan Blachowicz, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
And he's now down at middle. So that was a for real win, especially to test him down on the ground. Jacare being, I believe, a jiu-jitsu world champion, if not a world runner-up. I think he might have lost to Damian Maia in the world finals. But, dude, Kevin Holland is absolutely for real. And one thing that I want to touch on that we'll talk about later, his 5 wins this year have been super impressive. But I believe his last fight that was not in the UFC was a knockout win over Jeff Neal.
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, we'll talk about that later. But, I mean, when you start to look at the run that Kevin Holland is starting to put on and starting to go on, dude, I think the ceiling is incredibly high. I remember scoffing when he knocked out his last opponent and started jawing at Izzy. Dude, I can't tell you right now that I wouldn't be excited to see that fight. I'm not saying that that would even be a competitive fight. I think that right now, based on what we've seen, Kevin Holland may be Izzy's easiest opponent thus far, but I would still be excited for it, right? Kevin Holland has shown me nothing to think that he wouldn't be ready for that.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job of setting himself up for like a super hype, a championship fight, a few fights down the road. The other thing about Kevin Holland winning 5 fights, he's the 3rd fighter to ever do that. I didn't realize this. His first fight this year was in May.
Yeah, he did it in 7 months.
Yeah, the other fighters' first fights were in January. They had they really used the whole year to get 5 fights in. He did it.
Kevin did not start his run until COVID.
No, yeah.
After the big COVID wave.
COVID Kevin. That should be Kevin COVID Holland.
COVID.
Just kidding. He doesn't want that.
Kevin.
But he's only also, the other thing I heard in his interview is he's never been knocked out. He's only lost decisions and submissions. So he's been trying to get his jiu-jitsu game at a really high level because he figures if people can't beat him on the ground, no one can beat him standing. I mean, he's going to be tough.
The creative striking by Kevin Holland was nuts, right? Not only did he have a super aggressive guard, which I can't believe that he decided – I'm sorry, that was gross. I'm drinking Diet Coke. I can't believe that he really decided to go after Jacare on the ground. I thought for sure when Jacare took him down so early that it was trouble for Kevin Holland. But he was really searching for triangle chokes and, you know, obviously throwing back fists and, you know, the way that he knocked Jacare out was it was as unconventional of a strike as Joaquin Buckley knocking out Impa Kasanganay. Maybe not as dynamic and explosive and flashy looking, but certainly as creative and as unorthodox. I mean, and the fact that he was literally yelling at him as he was doing it was incredible.
Did you hear he yelled, I dreamt about this before he knocked him out?
Yep. Because he's just
crazy.
Assumed that he would be on the ground and he was going to make Jacare pay.
Yeah. He's
that's
one
awesome.
of my.
You can't make that.
No, he is quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters.
Oh, for sure. And I think I was a little.
You were hesitant. You were a little scared to hop on the train with me a week ago.
I know. Dude, and so Kevin Holland has fought 5 times and had 2 fights canceled.
Yeah.
This year, within those 5 fights. Now, he got back in the octagon a week after each time those fights got canceled, but with different opponents. So 2 of his 5 wins have been with opponents that he has gotten on 1 week notice. Not to say that he only had 1 week to prepare for the fight, but right, because he was slated to fight, is it Trevin Giles?
Yep.
And then that got canceled, and he hopped in with
Darren Stewart, I believe.
You're right. It was Darren Stewart. And then obviously was preparing for Jack Hermanson, and then got dealt the card of Jacare Souza, which are two completely different fighters, right? I mean, two completely.
I have no doubt. I think Kevin Holland would beat Jack Hermanson if they would have fought.
I think that there's a lot of evidence to support that. Now,
I think Kevin Holland might beat Marvin Vettori if they fight.
Way to a title? I'm not sure. I think Kevin Holland right now, realistically, is for sure in the top 10, possibly the top 6.
Yep. I like this, though. I don't want him to jump up. I want him to slowly keep fighting a bunch and climbing and getting more wins.
So who would you like to see him in the cage with next?
Honestly, I'd be fine. I'd be totally fine with them now doing the Hermanson fight.
See,
I mean, I know that's tough that's not great for Jack Hermanson to get Vettori and then, I don't know, have him fight Darren Till.
I think that's a big jump. I wouldn't be upset with a Vettori fight.
Mm-hmm.
Get another guy who
I'm
is
fine with that too.
You're pinning two guys who are on win streaks that are coming up in the division, right? Kevin Holland, who is just screaming his way in, and Marvin Vettori, who's kind of gotten knocked down and gotten back in. Two guys that, are fighting another guy coming off of a win and would benefit greatly, kind of as to solidify who of those two are the top dog.
And that would be a
newcomer in at that weight.
That would be an absolute guaranteed banger too.
That would be such a banger. And to be honest, I'm not sure. I think I would favor Kevin Holland in a fight with Marvin Vettori, and maybe that's a hot take, and maybe it's just recency bias, but that's MMA.
All right, let's move on. We love Kevin Holland. I could talk about him all day, but let's talk about Charles Oliveira, who maybe had the most impressive performance of the entire night.
Dude, I'm so mad that Charles Oliveira did not get performance of the night. Charles Oliveira got no bonuses last night.
And what he did to Tony Ferguson was disgusting.
We thought that Justin Gaethje beat the shit out of Tony Ferguson. Holy hell. Charles Oliveira beat the shit out of Tony Ferguson.
And there was nowhere to hide. There's nowhere where, Tony couldn't grapple with him. I mean, we kind of knew that coming in, but Tony also couldn't strike with him. I mean, there was nowhere to hide. Tony
didn't win 1 second of that fight.
No.
Not 1 second.
Nope.
And I've been vocal about it before. I'm not against Tony. I'm not a big Tony fan. But I don't want to bring up Twitter too much, but a lot of people are starting to say, "Oh, Tony's washed. Tony was never that good." And I'm not saying that I agree with that, but I've seen, in Twitter, Tony has a cult following, and so many people are just so quick to go defend Tony this and defend Tony that. And it's like, there's a reason why people are starting to say these things. There is enough evidence that this conversation needs to be, starting to be had. Now, I'm not sure he's won a single,
he's lost his last 8 rounds.
I know. And think about how everyone unanimously jumped off the Tyron Woodley bandwagon once he lost 10 straight rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he's lost, 15 straight rounds? Because he lost to Marty, he lost to
Gilbert Burns,
and then he lost to Colby, right? But and those are all much better competition or bigger names than I would say Oliveira is.
Oh, then Oliveira, yes.
And even after the 10 round, even after the 2 fights that Tyron Woodley lost, everybody just abandoned Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley is trash. Again, I'm not saying I agree with that, but everybody unanimously wrote him off. There are so many people that for some reason are such big fans of Tony that they are just willing to dismiss that there is something wrong. There was an excuse for why, last time it was the weight cut, and this time it was because blah, blah, and Tony's just lost a step.
They had so long to grow that fan club, though, when he did win those 12 fights in a row. I mean,
yes.
It's like Kevin Holland's won 5, and we're all him. Imagine if Kevin Holland now wins 7 more in the next 2 years or so.
Oh, for sure.
and then I'll defend Kevin Holland until I die. But I think that's why people are like it. I don't think Tony Ferguson I don't think he's necessarily for sure lost a step. I think this is just how good he is.
I would also agree with that.
Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje are two of the best fighters in the world right now. I mean,
yeah, and when we look at the most elite fighter that Tony has beaten, right, that's RDA. And when he beat RDA, it wasn't like RDA was the mean cyborg robot killer that he once was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or not even that he's looked like lately. He was kind of hitting a low point in his career at that time. That's why he made the weight class change.
Exactly. And I would say that the RDA right now is better than the RDA that Tony Ferguson beat. But yeah, I think this was a coming out party really for Charles Oliveira, a guy that a lot of casual fans didn't really know much about, myself included. I knew that he was a real competitor, but I wasn't well read on his pedigree and, his big wins. And, now looking back, the narrative of, Tony fights off his back so well that he would cause problems for Khabib. Come on. He would have gotten eaten. Khabib would have eaten Tony.
I think I would bet the house on Charles Oliveira over Justin Gaethje right now.
Boy, I'd still be hard sold on that, but I
think it's the same as Khabib almost. I mean, the ground pound isn't the same, but he's so good on the ground.
Dude, and he's good on his feet, man.
Yeah. His
takedowns were insane. His striking was insane. Dude, that's a fun fight, man.
I think this is setting up for if Khabib really is retired, setting up for Conor McGregor getting the belt.
Oh,
after watching these fights. I mean, that may not necessarily be a hot take, but I think Charles Oliveira can beat Justin Gaethje. I don't think Charles Oliveira can beat Conor McGregor.
What does this – okay, so we've kind of – we knew that Charles Oliveira and Tony Ferguson were in the mix, right? But I think everybody has kind of narrowed the lightweight race to I'll call them the four horsemen, right? Even though we haven't seen Chandler, right? He's one of them. Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and Conor McGregor. What does Charles Oliveira's win and the fashion in which he won do to that four horsemen? What does he do to that party?
He's got to be right in there.
Oh,
he's one of the winners. He's got to get somebody. I mean, if Khabib is gone, then you have the winners fight for the belt, and maybe he gets Gaethje. I don't know. Maybe he fights Gaethje and gets the next chance.
Dude, and without the fight being official, even though, kind of there's rumors that maybe on January 23rd that Gaethje will be fighting Chandler on that same night that McGregor and Poirier fight. That one's not a done deal, and I don't think we'll see Oliveira fighting Gaethje. But I only say that because the UFC spent so much money, presumably, on acquiring Chandler that they're going to have to use him. Right? They don't want, if you plug Charles Oliveira in there against Gaethje on that same night, then you just spent a whole bunch of money on Chandler, who now, is multiple fights away from relevancy. Yeah. But man, there's so much to be excited about early 2021 in the lightweight division.
Yep. And then let's just there's been a lot of takes on the main event, and we'll just touch on it lightly. But Davison Figueiredo went to a draw by majority decision against Brandon Moreno in an absolute banger of a fight.
Dude, that was so awesome. And although this, when you look at the official scorecards, right, there was that nut shot that really drew the tie, because on all judges' scorecards, Figueiredo was up 4-1 on one of them. He was up 3-2 on the other two cards. And then that, I didn't mean to flip off the camera there. The point deduction made those two cards that were 3-2 result in draws. But one thing that I did notice, and something that I always do, although I think everybody kind of was not upset by the decision, right? I think maybe there were people that thought that Moreno may have won, but there isn't a huge argument to be super upset that judges would have given that to Figueiredo. But what I did see and what I usually do is I go and look and see what rounds each judge gave to Moreno, because just because two judges saw the fight 3-2 for Figgy doesn't mean that they had those fighters winning the same rounds. And there was a judge, like Moreno got 4 different rounds scored as winning rounds for him combined. Right, so that means like judge number 1 scored it, 1 and 2, and then judge 2 scored it 2 and 3, and somebody scored it like 2 and 5. Right, like there were 4 of the different rounds that at least one judge saw Moreno winning, and that's how close this fight was.
Yeah.
It was kind of just a toss-up at the end of each round. It's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the champ got that one.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, incredible how much both of them took so much damage and just continued to battle. That'll be an easy rebook for the UFC.
Oh, for sure. And the only downside to that is I was really, really looking forward to Cody Garbrandt getting in the mix, but even I want to see Moreno and Figueiredo before Garbrandt gets in.
And maybe give Garbrandt a fight between now and then. And
yeah, maybe have Garbrandt fight
Roy Ball or something.
Or Sumudarji. I don't think we talked about Sumudarji last time, but anyway.
Yeah, but
lots to be excited about too in the flyweight division, and we haven't been able to say that for a really long time. So
yeah, I think that draw was maybe the best thing that could have happened.
I agree. We've never had such a rivalry,
and nothing, and it's okay. Like Ferguson lost the point, and he ended up being a draw instead of a win, but he still keeps the belt. He didn't lose the belt. I mean, everything is still the same.
Yeah. Although I will say that, and I texted you this, I think at the end of the fight, I don't like when there's too much love at the end of the fights.
Oh, I don't like that either.
Right? Like two guys like saying, yeah, and hugging each other, and maybe like even like doing the little head thing and kind of like good sportsmen like jawing at each other. It's fine. But like Figueiredo now twice has done it too much. Where with Perez, he like picked him up, and Perez was kind of like, hey man, like, okay, like get off me. And then they kept doing this, and then like, and that happened with the Tony and Oliveira fight too. Like they hugged for too long to the point where the guy that lost was like uncomfortable. And he's like, okay man, like get off me. Like I get it. I respect you, but get off me.
It never happened bad, but like had I ever been like in wrestling in a big match and just lost and someone tried to hug me, I'd push him off me. Like, don't touch me. I'm gonna hug you now.
Exactly. I respect the person usually that beat me, but I didn't want to hug it out.
Also, a lot of those people, well, not all, but sometimes the person who's willing to hug you after they win isn't willing to hug you after they lose.
Exactly.
So for myself, I just never would do it. Whether I won or lost, I wasn't going to embrace my opponent.
Embrace. What a sensitive word.
If you if you lost and you really want to hug me, I guess I can give you like a half sideways one arm around the shoulder, but I don't want to hug you. And if I win, I want to celebrate my win, not hugging you. I don't want to hug you.
Dude, and it doesn't matter who it is, Cal. If you and I wrestled, like you're my best friend. If you and I wrestled and you beat me, I would need like 10 minutes to cool down.
Oh yeah, like I know. I've seen
you hug you
54 before you turn off your Xbox.
I'm not gonna hug you. I don't care who it is. But anyway, all right. So UFC 256 was dope. Yep. Absolutely awesome.
And it feels like we have another pay-per-view this weekend.
Dude. I mean, this is now the third fight night that has just been an absolute banger that feel like pay-per-views. And, I think that this card may be more highly touted maybe than the pay-per-view from last weekend. Now, do I think the pay-per-view that we saw last night was maybe the card of the year as far as the actual fights that went down? Yes, I do. But I'm saying that this fight this week may have more hype behind them, more interesting fights, at least to guys like you and I, and hopefully to the listeners here. Hopefully we can get them hyped up a little bit. But there's some incredible fights and incredible athletes that are like not even like high up on the main card or in the prelims. So let's get to the prelims.
Absolutely. The first fight I want to highlight is, and to a lot of people, he probably doesn't mean much to them, but he is a wrestler at heart. We have Darren Wynn fighting Antonio Arroyo. Darren Wynn is 6-2. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He most recently lost to Gerald Mearshart. He also has a loss to Darren Stewart.
But in his one win that he does have in the UFC, that was his UFC debut, he got fight of the night as well.
Yeah.
So he's a banger.
He's a plus 120 underdog. His opponent is a minus 150 favorite. He's 9-3. He is 0-1 in the UFC. I like Darren Wynn. I've actually met him one time. He's like a cool guy. The guy just he shouldn't be a middleweight.
No, he should cut down a little bit more. Now, notably, he has been training with Daniel Cormier. He is the assistant coach at Gilroy High School, where Daniel Cormier is the head coach. So, I mean, he trains at AKA. I've got to favor Darren Wynn in this, even though that he's the slight underdog. He's too small. He's got no reach. I mean, he is built like a fire hydrant. He's a brick shit house, but
I think this guy's like 5 inches taller than him or something, or 6 inches taller. I just don't understand. I mean, it's not even 5 inches. He's 9 inches taller than Darren Wynn. 6'2" and 5'5".
That's just not being short and stumpy is just not very conducive.
Of course, look at some of the best fighters. They're lanky dudes. They're skinny, lanky dudes.
And I can really only think of one exception, and that is Volkanovski. But he is so big for his weight that, I mean, Cejudo, but I mean, he's fighting at flyweight and bantamweight. Like, you can kind of get away with being short and stumpy.
Build and Darren Wynn, like, they're probably the same height.
Yeah. Imagine Darren Wynn fighting a Kevin Holland. Or an Izzy. Like,
you would never touch Izzy. He couldn't ever be within an arm's length.
No.
So I don't know. I'm probably not even going to bet on this fight because I just don't know. I like Darren Wynn too much, and I just don't know if he can win at that weight class. And I really wish he would make a change, but that's neither here nor there, and I don't think he's going to.
And before you go on to, I want to backtrack a little bit, and I will admit I do not know anything about this man's opponent, but I do want to highlight Jimmy Flick. Flick is a flyweight. He was slated to fight last weekend. That got canceled due to either him testing positive or his opponent testing positive. I don't even know if this is the same opponent that he was supposed to fight. But Jimmy Flick, it is the same opponent?
No, it was his opponent last week who tested positive.
Okay. Jimmy Flick is incredible on the ground. He has no striking, almost no striking at all, but has incredible wrestling, incredible jiu-jitsu. I mean, so awesome. So please just watch Jimmy Flick on the prelims. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. He's a slight favorite in that fight.
Yeah.
The next fight, name I always recognize, Carl Robertson, is, you know what, Nelson, I'm going to let you take his opponent. Who is Carl Robertson fighting?
Okay, I may butcher this too, but I'm going to say Dalcha Lungimbula.
Perfect.
Lungimbula. I'm not
really sure. I love it. Robertson's a -280 favorite. He is 9-3, 5-3 in the UFC. He's got a win over Darren Stewart. He's got losses to Marvin Vettori and Glover Teixeira. Those are his last 2 losses, so 2 studs. Most recently, he was submitted by Vettori, I believe, in the first or second round. His opponent, Dalcha, is a +220 underdog. He is 10-2, 1-1 in the UFC with a win over Declan Townsend and a loss to Magnomed Ankalaev. He's looked all right. Both these guys are solid fighters. I think you got to give Carl Robertson the edge, and the odds kind of show that, but it's definitely nothing guaranteed in this fight.
No, I think this one will be a banger.
It should be a good fight. Both these guys will most likely stand and bang. I guess I'm going to take Robertson. I got nothing else to say about that fight.
Yeah,
that's one worth watching for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would be truthfully confident in either one. I think this is just one that we're going to see what happens when they start making car crashes in there.
Yep. And it's just neither of those guys have a whole bunch of fights that are great to like feel out how good they're. I mean, they both lost to studs, really the top guys, and they beat the guys they should. So it's like, where are you in the middle?
Yeah.
The next guy I wanted to highlight is making his UFC debut. His name is Stefan Inchukwue. He is 4-0. He will be fighting his 5th fight. And his previous 4 fights are all via knockout on the Dana White Contender Series. He had a massive head kick and just absolutely starched a guy. He is powerful. I mean, he's going to be someone who you're going to enjoy watching. Just knock out, ridiculous power, raw power. I mean, nothing's polished, which will eventually could get him into trouble against a guy like Jamie Pickett, who is 11-4. Mm-hmm. He's 1-1, or he's making his UFC debut as well. But the thing that makes me not think too highly of Jamie Pickett is he's 1-1 on the Contender Series. He lost his first fight. He come back. He got another chance. Obviously, there's a reason that Dana White gave him another chance. But I don't know. I just don't think if you're losing a fight on the Contender Series, you're going to come out and beat this guy who's fighting his 5th fight in the UFC. And we've highlighted that before, that we think when you see a guy with minimal fights fighting on a UFC card, he's going to be a monster.
Yes.
Like, you don't get – he has had some high praise somewhere to be 4-0 and then fighting in this fight.
I agree.
And he's Stefan is a minus 325 favorite. But I'm excited to see what this guy has got. I'm excited to see that power in the UFC ring. I think I think that is all for the prelims that I wanted to cover. You maybe had another fight or two you wanted to talk about?
I just wanted to kind of hype up the fight between Belal Muhammad and Diego Lima. I think it's just going to be a super banger. Belal Muhammad has been a guy that's been around for a long time. I don't have his record pulled up. Diego Lima was an Ultimate Fighting. He might have been the champ of the Ultimate Fighter, like season 18, maybe. I might be wrong on that, but obviously brother of Douglas Lima, the current. I don't know if Douglas Lima is the current Bellator champ. I know he just fought maybe Gegard Mousasi, but either way, Diego Lima is for real. Belal Muhammad is for real, and there's a reason that it is headlining the prelim card. But I digress. Let's get to the main card.
All right, the first fight I have listed on the main card is Anthony Pettis and Alex Moreno. You really want him to be Moreno too, but Moreno.
Unfortunately, he is not.
But Anthony Pettis he's one of those guys he's been fighting forever. He's 23-10. He's 1-1 this year. He had the win over Cowboy Cerrone,
which I disagreed with, but
I disagreed with as well. And I'm kind of using that when I break down this fight. I'm kind of using that as my gauge. I think he's about as good as Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah. Who did he lose to this year?
He lost to.
I think you know it off the top of your head, but
I don't. The big names he's lost to are Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, and Dustin Poirier. Those are the most recent big losses he's had. Last year he beat Wonderboy last year though.
Yep, he knocked him out with a Superman punch. I think.
Which by far in his in the past 3-4 years, that's his biggest win.
Yeah. So for those of you who maybe are newer to MMA, Anthony Pettis, obviously the legend of the sport, was the WEC champ. And then when they came over, then he became the UFC champ. I mean, beating guys like Benson Henderson. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the clip of Anthony Pettis running off the cage to kicking Benson Henderson in the face. I mean, and I love Benson Henderson, but that was awesome. But Anthony Pettis is a guy that is still around. He's still, like you said, like a Donald Cerrone, like still a top-ish guy.
But while that fight was close and he maybe lost it, he still is only a year removed from beating Wonderboy. I mean, that is a legitimate big-time win. So
and that was Wonderboy's last fight.
Yes. He needed a little time off after that one. His opponent, Alex Moreno, is 18-6. He's 1-1 He's 1-1 this year as well. He's won 5 of his last 6, but not against any real studs. His last win was
starched by Chaos, didn't he? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take the thunder.
No, you're good. No, you're good. Perfect. Yeah, he was starched by Chaos. He was Chaos Williams' first fight in the UFC, and he was just knocked out cold.
I believe 27 seconds. Yeah. And I picked against Alex Moreno in his last fight. I picked Reese McKee Skeletor over him. That was actually a really good fight. It was sloppy. It was a good fight. Moreno looked extremely just solid and basic and fundamental and showed no real ability to ever achieve greatness, in my opinion. And for that, I've got to go with the former champ in this one. Yeah.
Kind of interesting here. He has a draw against Nico Price. So this is a really competitive fight. This was this was a few years ago, 3-4 years ago. But it's kind of interesting because Nico Price just had a draw against Cowboy.
Yes.
So you could say that those 3 would all be on par. Cowboy beat Pettis in a close fight, but a lot of people thought Pettis won. I think Showtime Pettis is going to get another win here.
Yeah, you can make an argument that Nico Price and Pettis and Moreno and I guess it's just those three.
Cowboy
And
and
Cowboy
Cowboy.
are all very,
They're all
very
they're
close.
very close. Yes. So it should be. I think it'll be a really competitive fight. But yeah, I'm gonna lean Pettis as well too. Usually I go with the younger guys, but not for this one. I think Showtime Pettis. I don't think he's all the way gone yet.
No, I think he's still here to fight.
Mm-hmm. The next fight on the main card is Talia Santos versus Jillian Robertson. Santos is 16-1. She is a -110 underdog. She's 1-1 in the UFC. Her loss was to Mara Birella. When she really got started into fighting, she won 14 fights in a row via finishes, knockout submissions. So she has been a killer. Her loss to Birella was a split decision loss, so a very competitive fight.
Mm-hmm.
Her opponent, Jillian Robertson, is 9-4. She's a -120 favorite. She's 6-2 in the UFC. She's won her last two. I truthfully don't think Santos has fought this level of competition that well. And I think Jillian Robertson being 6-2 in the UFC, 9-4 isn't really impressive, but being 6-2 in the UFC is.
I agree.
You don't usually see a person go from being 3-2 to then outside the UFC and then turning it around and winning 6 of 8.
Yep, I think maybe what we would see if we dug a little deeper is that she may have gotten to like a super camp or gotten some coaches that really kind of
That's a good point.
Fostered that. I don't want to say that a lot of women that get into fighting aren't previously pedigreed, but sometimes we see that.
And you see that sometimes she potentially decided to go for it and stop working her 9 to 5. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But she's been very good as of late.
Yeah.
And so far, when Talia Santos has fought higher level competition, she has struggled. So for that reason, I would take Jillian Robertson in this fight.
Yep, I'm with you there.
Though. Now we got one of our up-and-comers, one of the hardest hitters in the UFC, Greg Hardy, fighting Marcin Tybura. And I know I've been feeling this boiling over for the last few weeks, our thoughts on Greg Hardy.
Yep.
I'll lay out the stats for both these guys, and we can get into it a little bit.
Okay.
Greg Hardy is 7-2. He's got a win over Maurice Green. His last loss was to Alexander Volkov, and that's his only real loss. His other loss was via disqualification.
For the inhaler?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. But he's fighting Marcin Tybura, who is 20-6, and besides Volkov, this is Greg Hardy's biggest fight to date. Tybura is a -110 underdog, so once again, another ridiculously close fight on the odds. Tybura most recently beat Ben Rothwell. He also has a win over Stephen Struve. He's got losses to Derek Lewis, and his fight before Ben Rothwell was a loss to Augusto Sakai, which
King Kong.
Yep. So I'm excited for this one.
I am also excited, and I know who you're picking.
You don't like it either.
I don't like it. All right, let's hear it.
I just think Greg Hardy's too athletic and proving. I think he's getting better and better every fight, and I was, unlike you, I was impressed his last fight, and I think Tybura has been KO'd before. I think it can happen again.
Listen, I've never fought, right? I've only wrestled. I don't know much about the ins and outs of fighting. And it is obvious to me that neither does Greg Hardy, right? He looks like an NFL player that just decided to just fight now instead, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that he isn't a freak athlete and he does not have stoppage power, right? But I have to believe, that there is something to be said about someone who knows how to fight and knows the ins and outs of fighting that will put them above a physical freak, right? Maybe with that exception being Francis Ngannou, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that Francis Ngannou has bounds and bounds more physical ability and natural talent that suits him well in a cage fighting scenario than Greg Hardy.
Right?
I have to have faith that people train MMA for a reason, right? And to me, it doesn't look like Greg Hardy knows how to fight. He clearly has ridiculous athletic ability. He clearly has ridiculous power. But he seems to me like he has no ground game, no fight IQ, and I have to believe in the integrity of MMA. And I cannot pick Greg Hardy.
I'm saying I'm picking Greg Hardy, and I will still pick Greg Hardy, but I really struggle to pick him against a guy who has 20 professional wins.
I know. Because who did he fight last time? Was it Maurice Green?
No, he fought someone else. Jorgen De Castro, I think. Was that his last fight?
I don't know.
I can tell you in 1 second. Oh, no. I can't tell you in 1 second. Never mind. It doesn't matter.
No, but
his last fight
I wasn't impressed. He got gassed. He looked like shit. Okay, Greg Hardy, I will give it to you, is very dangerous within the first minute.
Mm-hmm.
You got to weather a hell of a storm if you're fighting Greg Hardy in the first minute. But, man,
yep.
I already said my piece.
Yep, I kind of agree with you, but I kind of don't. And I kind of want Greg Hardy to win just because I know it'll bother you.
I also see no soul in Greg Hardy's eyes, which scares me.
There isn't, for sure.
He just looks like this.
I mean, at some point he got I don't even know what you charge someone with here, but he got charged for...
I think it was domestic abuse.
Yeah, well, yes, domestic abuse, but it should be something else. Should be a special name for when you throw your girlfriend onto a bed full of guns.
Yeah.
That's you can't. There's domestic abuse, and then there's throwing someone on a bed full of guns, telling him you're going to kill him. But anyways, he's a soulless person, a terrible person. But we'll see what happens. Our next fight is Marlon Moraes is making his return against Rob Font. Moraes is 23-7. He is a -155 favorite. Font is 17-4, and he's a +125 underdog. Font is 7-3 in the UFC. Moraes has been a stud for a little bit now. He's got wins over Jose Aldo, Aljamain Sterling, Rafael Assunção. His most recent losses are Corey Sandhagen, which we remember he got kicked in the head and finished, and then Cejudo. I mean, he has been fighting the top pedigree for a minute now.
Yes, and to be honest, this is just a fight. It is a tune-up fight. I mean, and I think tune-up fight usually refers to a guy that's been laid off for a while. I think this is just a fight to justify his position back up at the top. And I say this before you even introduced his opponent, but
no, I said he's 17-4. I think the odds are too close. Moraes is a 155 favorite, -155. Rob Font would only return +125 underdog as a win.
No, that should be further apart, in my opinion.
Look at their one common opponent, Rafael Assunção. Moraes has finished him, and Font got finished by him. I mean, exactly. We're not far removed.
Moraes and Assunção have fought twice.
Yep,
maybe possibly Assunção winning that first one. Maybe
he did. So, yes, but Moraes has lost to Assunção too. But
but in their most recent bout, that is more reflective of who they are today, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And before Moraes lost to Corey Sandhagen, he beat Jose Aldo. I mean, one of the GOATs.
Which I did think that he beat Jose Aldo. I know a lot of people
don't, but I think he did too.
Yeah. I was kind of mad when Jose Aldo got the interim title or the vacant title fight.
It easily could have been Moraes. I mean, there's no reason it should have been.
Yeah, Jose Aldo's 0-2 at 135 and has gotten a title fight. And I'm mad about that, but I digress. We'll talk about him in a second.
We're going to get him in a second, yeah. First, we got the fight I'm probably the most excited for, and that might just be the dirty casual in me. But we got Williams fighting Michel Pereira. Michel's 24-11. He is 2-2 in the UFC. He is an absolute wild man. One of his losses are, I'm pretty sure he was doing a backflip onto Diego Sanchez and elbowed him straight in the head or something. He got disqualified.
I think he kneed him in the face when they were down. Yeah.
Yes.
It was,
But he's an absolute, he's crazy.
Yes.
At some point, if he gets a chance, he will do a backflip in the fight.
For no reason.
Yeah. He'll be like, backflip. Okay, now let's.
Yeah.
And then if you've been watching lately, you know who Chaos Williams is. He's 11-1. He's a slight underdog here at -105. 2-0 in the UFC, 2 knockouts, and just starch knockouts. One was in 30 seconds, and the other one was in 27 seconds.
Yeah,
I can't believe Chaos Williams is a underdog in this fight.
I agree.
Even if it's very slight, if it's essentially a pick-em fight, I can't believe it.
I agree. And again, I am not a pro on Michel Pereira's record and who he has beaten and who he has lost. But in my mind, Michel Pereira is not any particularly better than any other fighter in the UFC. He's just weird and outrageous.
Yeah,
right? Like I don't view him as very good.
11 losses.
Yeah, like I don't view him as like an elite fighter or a guy like. And when I look at Chaos Williams, even though I know that the sample size is small, like, how do you not favor Chaos Williams in this fight? I'm so excited.
A guy who Chaos Williams beat in 27 seconds. We're debating whether Anthony Pettis can beat him.
Exactly.
And then we're going to talk about how Chaos Williams is an underdog, and this fight is ridiculous.
Dude, I would take Anthony Pettis over Michel Pereira right now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing about Michel's style and how he moves and the things that make him fun is it also makes him vulnerable. And Chaos Williams has proven to us twice now that he only needs one opening to end your night.
Yes, I only watch Michel Pereira for the potential that he gets a crazy knockout or he gets knocked out so hard.
I mean, I love watching him. I get excited every time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work against a guy like Chaos Williams, who is going to come out and
just has a right hand as a laser.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm excited. This will be this.
I have 100% confidence in Chaos Williams.
I have 100% confidence in a Chaos Williams starch KO. Like,
very quick.
Yes.
Okay, I'll say first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I really think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a super fun fight too. Now we're up to our co-main, and we got Jose Aldo and Marlon Chito Vera fighting here. What can I say about Aldo? He's 28-7. You know, he's one of the GOATs. He's got wins most recently over Renato Moicano, Jeremy Stephens. He just lost to Peter Yan. We saw him lose in the championship fight. Obviously, Marlon Moraes he's lost to. He's split with Max Holloway, 1 win, 1 loss. And he also has a loss to Volkanovski.
I don't think that's true. I think Max Holloway beat him both times.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
You know what? I think you're right.
And Jose Aldo went from not losing for 10 years and then got starched by Conor, got beat by Max Holloway twice, beat by Peter Yan, got beat by Marlon Moraes. Yeah.
Yeah. He's fighting Chito Vera, who is 16-6. He's been in the UFC for a while. He's 10-4 in the UFC. But everyone knows Chito Vera because he beat Sean O'Malley with the leg kick, and Sean O'Malley is flopping around on the ground. This fight is kind of close in the odds, and I don't think it should be either. Jose Aldo at -150, Marlon Vera +120. I think Jose Aldo is going to beat Marlon Vera.
I disagree with you, and I disagree with you maybe on unfounded knowledge, but I'm starting to see a trend, and that trend is that Father Time is starting to swallow up some of these established kind of former champs, right? Notably, we've seen Junior Dos Santos. We've seen Shogun Rua. We've seen Tony Ferguson, right? And I think we're seeing Jose Aldo. I mean, Jose Aldo has to have lost like 5 of his last 7, right? I mean,
he's been slipping.
I mean,
my reason why I think he can win this fight is his fight against Marlon. Well, we both think he lost. It was very close.
It was. And to be honest, his fight with Peter Yan was not a blowout.
No, and it was competitive at the beginning, and he ended up getting wore down and eventually finished by Peter Yan. But what has Marlon Vera done besides kick Sean O'Malley? Who even knows if Sean O'Malley's really that good? Sean O'Malley's never beat anybody.
Yeah, I know. And it's less about Chito Vera.
I know. It's
more about Jose Aldo just declining in my mind. I mean, he's 0-2 at 135. Like,
Yeah.
Maybe that's some weight on him too. I mean,
yeah, we'll see. I just have no faith in Vera, and I hate him.
you hate him because you love Sean, and I like Sugar Sean too. But
hey, we got to pause for a second.
Okay.
Before we go.
Okay.
I got to. Matt left his keys here last night, and he's called me twice. I think he's here.
Okay.
I'll be right back, and then we'll talk about the last fight. Sorry.
Unacceptable.
All right. I'm back.
All right, folks, we had to take a short intermission, but due to the power of editing, it's not going to affect your listening experience. Now, let's get back to what we were talking about, which was
we're on to the main event.
To the main event. Yeah, absolutely.
And end of the night, we got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Jeff Neal. And this is a good one. Wonderboy's 15-4. And this is both are priced at -115. So just exactly what you would call a pick'em fight. These guys couldn't be more even on paper. Lately, Wonderboy's wins. He's got a win over Vicente Luque. Then his last big win before that would have been his win over Masvidal. He has losses to Anthony Pettis, Darren Till, Tyron Woodley. He also had a draw with Tyron Woodley at some point. Jeff Neal is 13-2, 6-0 in the UFC. Wins over Nico Price and Mike Perry. His last loss was in 2017 to our boy Kevin Holland, which we previously talked about.
Yep.
Yeah, this is exciting, and I'm going to say I would like you to say what you think first.
Dude, I think that dude, this one's hard because Stephen Thompson is maybe the best kickboxer we've ever seen in the UFC. I believe he's undefeated in kickboxing. I don't think he ever lost, which puts him right in the company of the greatest kickboxers we've ever seen, right in with Israel Adesanya, right in with another good kickboxer is not coming to my mind, but man, he does some awesome stuff. He's flashy. He's super cool. He's so kind. Like, he is the NMF to George Masvidal's BMF, right? But man, Jeff Neal is a certified murderer. Dude, I'll go with Jeff Neal. And that's against what I was thinking before.
I feel bad. I feel like I skewed your choice earlier talking before the show, but I'm also going with Jeff Neal, and here are my thoughts. You have Steve Thompson, who just lost Anthony Pettis, who we also saw lose to Cowboy Cerrone.
Yes, I will say that the Anthony Pettis fight, that was a flash knockout. I will say that. It was not like Anthony Pettis bullied him. I think that
And
in my opinion, 8 times out of 10, Stephen Thompson beats Anthony Pettis, but in that time, he didn't.
Also, you look at the guys like, yeah, he's beat Masvidal, but is Masvidal really that good? I mean, he's good for sure.
Yeah.
There's still
that was before the resurrection.
What? Yeah.
Since Masvidal's had his resurrection, he's been pretty hot, but
this is true.
This was before the resurrection.
And Jeff Neal hasn't lost since 2017. He's never lost in the UFC.
Yeah.
He is and that's why I am favoring him. And once again, you got a guy who's hot and on the come up, and another guy who's kind of on the come down. And
I want Stephen Thompson to win, but I think Jeff Neal's going to win.
I think it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, it's a great main event, especially for a fight night card. I love it. Now, do I think that this is okay? Yeah, I do think this is the best fight on the card. Never mind.
But I was going to just make a comment too, though. There's like at least 2 or 3 other fights on this card that could be a main event for a fight night for sure.
Yes, I think this is the best fight. I don't think either of these 2 athletes are the best athlete on this card.
No.
But I think this is the best fight, and I think it is the rightful main event.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you look at, what was it most recently with was it Clark versus Anthony Smith?
Yep.
Anthony Smith was the only ranked fighter on that entire card, prelims or main card. And right now I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, maybe a possible 7 ranked fighters on this whole, this is a great fight night.
And there's a ton of guys who are right around that bubble too.
Yes, right on the cusp.
But yeah, this is a fantastic fight night. You're getting some great free fights here.
Yeah.
But I think we probably said all we have to say about this night.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be, out hopefully tomorrow. On Monday. We're recording this on Sunday. And, follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Get at us. I know we were going to talk about maybe another possible T-shirt giveaway that we really didn't follow up with. Cal, do you want to stand up and display our awesome Casual Combat merchandise?
Yeah.
When we say merchandise, there's no place where you can buy these. You can only get them via us giving them away. So tune into Twitter. We'll probably put a post up tonight about how we're going to do another giveaway. But we want to get these shirts in the hands of some of our awesome fans.
We got them.
We got them.
I'm right here, ready to go.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Cal. It's been awesome.
Yep.
Sayonara.
Great.